getting in touch with the VC was definitely easier. But when it comes to getting an investment from them, it's a totally different story. Execution capabilities does not come even though you're an ex-VC. But pre-COVID and post-COVID gives investors a chance to identify companies who are able to withstand and thrive during these tough times. As a founder, one thing I noticed is that don't be afraid to ask for help. Founders get stuck all the time. And even though as successful as you think, some of these bigger companies are, they get stuck as well. Things are going to be unexpected. You're going to have to change things quickly.
Selamat datang di video podcast Startup Studio Indonesia X Impact 2. Startup Studio Indonesia adalah program intensif bagi early stage startup founders dari Kementerian Komunikasi dan Informatika. Dalam video podcast ini, saya, Italo Gani, partner dari Impact 2, akan menggali perspektif dan pengalaman dari para founders tech companies ternama di Indonesia di masa early stage. So, you will know what it takes to go the extra miles. Thank you, Hiro, for coming to Startup Studio video podcast. So, Hiro is the founders of Wallex and also the CEO of Wallex. So, first, I think not so many people understand what is Wallex, I think. Maybe if you can share a little bit what is Wallex, and after that, we're going to talk more about your experience in as an entrepreneur and also as a VCs, yeah. But please share a little bit about Wallex to the audience, yeah.
Sure, absolutely, and thanks for having me here, Talo. Always a pleasure to speak with you. So Wallex, we are a B2b focused FX and cross-border payments platform. The primary use case is, let's say, if you're an SME, yeah, you're importing goods from overseas. You have suppliers to pay. We do the FX and the cross-border payment. So that's for our kind of direct customer base who typically use us online, transact, right? But we also offer our FX and cross-border infrastructure via API through embedded finance. So yeah, I mean, it's a B2B focused, and we don't really serve the retail segment, and that's what we specialize in. We're operating right now and licensed out of 3 countries: Indonesia, Singapore, and Hong Kong. So yeah, about 5 years in, and it's been a great journey so far.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, and I remember one of your first investor is the BCA venture arm. Is it CCV? Correct?
Right. Yes, Central Capital Ventura came in on one of our earlier rounds.
Okay, interesting. So I know you for quite some time, Hiro, and I think you used to be like a venture capital. Now you're a founders, and is very rare in Indonesia to have person to have experience as a venture capital and as a founder at the same time. Maybe you can share a little bit the stories behind. What do you think about venture capital? What do you think about founders? If you have to choose, which one do you want to be?
That's a good one. I mean, like being a founder is definitely much, much more challenging. But for me personally, in order to be a better VC, right, I think having that operator founder experience becomes highly valuable. So my story is, as you mentioned, I started off as a VC. Actually, my first job was actually a developer. I was a developer at Macquarie Bank working on equity derivatives, trading systems, middle office, back office systems, applications. That was in Sydney. So I did that for about 4 or 5 years. And, back then I was contemplating on moving back to Indonesia, Southeast Asia. And it was actually Ryu Suliawan, founder of Midtrans, who introduced me to Gree Ventures. At that time, it was called Gree. Now it's called Strive, right? So I was lucky enough to get into the startup role at a very, very early stage of the tech ecosystem, right? 2012, 2011. I mean, it's been a decade since since we've seen the industry evolve, but early days, right? So during those times, while I was a VC, working with founders, they would ask me for advice, strategic advice. What should I do in this case? what do you think of this? And for me, I've never been a founder before. I've never been an operator, and in the back of my mind, I was like, who am I to say, right? Who am I to give you guys advice? But with my logical thinking capabilities, whatever I had it put together, I would try to answer them somehow. So those were the kind of moments where I thought that, hey, look, if I were to ever go back into VC again, I'd want to be a founder first, right? Understand what it feels like to be a founder. What is it that a founder goes through? So that at least if I'm back on the investor side, I can put myself in their shoes.
I think when you decide to become a founder, I'm not surprised because I can feel when you become a VC, you are very into the product. I think you're very similar to Mario Suntano. When I married Mario first time, dude, you should be a founder, not a VC. And suddenly he started Yummy Corp. So I same, yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, just to kind of touch on that as well, right? You definitely don't see a lot of VC turned founders because in most cases it's the other way around. You look at a lot of the examples in the U.S. The Andreessens, the Peter Thiels, they all built their companies, sold it, and then became a VC, right? So I would say that's more of a common path. But because I never had the founder experience, I wanted to go through this first before going back into VC.
So are you suggesting that all the VCs in Indonesia should become a founders first, become a behavioral VC?
I'm not suggesting, but I think you get to get valuable experience as a founder or even as
Yeah,
an
yeah.
operator.
Yeah, I can feel when we met VCs and this VC as ex-founders, I think they completely understand the whole idea of running companies better than VC who's coming like a pure financial background. Yeah. So because I think especially Indonesian founders, because Indonesia is not like a very ready ecosystem to build a startup. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. Right?
So when we talk about Indonesia, I think you mentioned you start as a VC in 2012. So what is in terms of, let's say we talk about the VC landscape? Yeah, what is different between 2012 to 2016 and now? I think you experience as a VC, you experience as a founders as well. So what's the difference between Indonesia 2012, 2016, and Indonesia now? Maybe pre-COVID and after COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, back then there was not many VCs around to speak with, right? Let alone international VCs. I'd say Gree Ventures, Strive was definitely one of the first waves, and Cyber Agent, first wave of Japanese money coming in, and then we started seeing Korean money coming in, right? And now you're getting the attention of the U.S. guys, right? Ribbit invested. Um, and I think Dave Valar as well, right? So I think Southeast Asia, or more specifically Indonesia, has caught the attention of our Western VC counterparts. And also, like, even on the investment types, Series A valuation back then used to be less than what, 5 million post money. Now you're seeing tens of millions being poured into the Series A stage. So the ecosystem has matured, right? The startups have matured, the founders have matured, the VC investment landscape has also matured. Now, on top of that, we see a lot more money as well locally coming up. Not only international VCs, but these family office types, other sort of fund managers. I mean, even private equity. We're starting to see private equity money coming into VC investment territory where we would have not seen back then, like 5-10 years ago. Yeah. And then, you mentioned about pre-COVID, post-COVID, how it's like in the investment landscape. I would say that I would feel that VCs are now a little bit more opportunistic now that they are seeing the pathway to recovery, and the opportunities present itself as attractive for more investments to come in. I wouldn't say VC investments stopped during COVID, right? But pre-COVID and post-COVID gives investors a chance to identify companies who are able to withstand and thrive during these tough times, right?
And I think your experience as a VC as well is maybe it's really helpful for you to understand how VC works. So I also noticed there is a lot of these startup that the founders is coming from big VCs. They're able to raise like huge amount, like kind of seed round. So because you are already at the VC, you know how VC think, you know how VC actually calculate. So is it really helpful for you when you start Wallex? Do you have the funding before you launch the product? Probably is it that?
Oh man, I would think, I was being overly confident, maybe barely and borderline arrogant, right? By being a VC, hey, look, I know how to raise money. I should be able to get funding in no time. But boy, I was so wrong. I mean, getting in touch with the VC was definitely easier, right? I had my contacts. But when it comes to getting an investment from them, it's a totally different story, right? Execution capabilities does not come even though you're an XVC. That's something that you're just gonna. It's either you have or you don't, or even if you don't have it, you're gonna have to learn throughout the way and just go for it, right? So it wasn't the easiest of transitions coming from a VC background, knowing how a VC thinks, and being on the other side of it as a founder and trying to raise money to that, right? So it's definitely much more challenging than I thought. It still is difficult, right? Every stage you're fundraising, you're speaking with different investors. They all have their different reasons, and even though you might think that, hey, I know what these guys are thinking, it's always difficult. Yeah.
I see. But I think you successfully engaged one of the biggest company in the world, which is you got invested by Base, which is I heard behind Base is Ant Financial. So how you convince like that kind of big companies invest in you? What is the story? If you can tell the whole story to get like Alibaba kind of investment. The behind stories is like takes in a one meeting, takes 6 months. I don't know.
I'd say the whole Series A process was definitely a long one, right? We probably went through like what, 30, 40, 50 investors. Even for our Series B, we're on like investor number 48 or something like that. So it's definitely a lengthy process for every fundraise. And it really depends on I think it all comes down to storytelling, right? How you pitch yourself as you, of course, the founder, right? How you pitch your story on building a business that has huge upside, huge potential. Because mind you, every investor wants their return to be made in a short lifetime. They all have like what, 5, 7, 10 year life, VC fund lifetime. So they want to make the returns on that, right? So how do they make the returns? They want to see fast growth. So it really depends on catering, or I would say cater to, but hitting those spots where where it attracts the VCs. Every VC would have different appetite, different biases. I would even say, right, and different industry segments that they like to invest in, that they don't like to invest in. So it's really a numbers game. I mean, when it comes to VC investing, right? You pitch to 100, one or two might say yes, and then and then the rest will follow. You need to find that lead first. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is find the lead. Yeah, and after you had the lead, everything is like follow. Yeah.
Finding that lead investor has been a challenge, not only for us, but probably for a lot of founders, right?
So Hiro, are you a single founder or you have other founders?
I have a co-founder, so we have two.
Okay. So how do you I think this is everybody's question, every founder's question. How you manage your time, especially you need to build a great product, you need to keep up the growth, you need to hack and everything, but at the same time you need to meet like these 40 50 VCs to fundraise. How you manage the time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great point, right? Um, First of all, fundraising takes up all your time. So when you're fundraising, 100% of your time is on fundraising, and you need to add in an additional 10, 20, 30% on everything else. So you're spending 130% of your time on building the business when you're fundraising, right? And I mean, that's how important fundraising is, because if you don't have investors and you're running out of cash, that's it. You got to close shop. Um, so when we fundraise, we normally spend a lot of time and resources on it, which is why it sucks. Which is why I hate fundraising. So that point aside, working with co-founder is definitely, working with the co-founder that has complementary skills that can bring different things to the table definitely helps. Um, and it's also important to understand, how to work with your co-founder, right? Because there's going to be things that your co-founder is good at and that your co-founder is not good at. There's going to be things that I'm good at and that I'm not good at. And it's really about managing those expectations, understanding the differences, and accepting those differences, right? And you need to have a co-founder that also understands that as well. You can't win every debate. You can't win every argument. So there's going to be times where you need to agree to disagree. Yeah. Some people can't do that. So it's important that you find someone who can, one, bring different things to the table, and two, understand to be able to, disagree at some points, but agree at some points.
I see. And one thing actually, how you manage your time. You have families, you have kids. I think you already work like 12 hours a day. Suddenly, okay, this is a time to fundraise, and you cannot slowing down the product. You need to add up more time. So how you manage to talk to your wife and to your kids?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the thing is, once you have family, right, with kids and everything, your priorities change. Family becomes number one priority, by all means. And no matter what, we'll try to figure things out along the way on how to make it work. Just for an example, in the mornings, there's no real work between 7 to 8 a.m., even up to 9 a.m. So that's when I would wake up early, for example, spend time with my kids before they go to school, right? And then other things outside of work, like going to the gym, staying healthy. I used to do that after work. Now that's part of my sort of like a quick 30-minute thing during the day. Um, and like I think you know the story by William Tokopedia. I think he sort of advocates this a lot on the five sort of types of five balls, being work, life, health, friends, I think rest or something like that. And yeah, once you start to have family or things that matter more to you, then you prioritize those kind of things, right? So you pick those three balls that you can juggle differently compared to if you were, for example, single. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, during and it's also good to have a team or a co-founder that understands, the importance of having family. I don't have to explain myself to the team when I need to go pick up my daughter, right? Because even though I leave work early at 4:30 to pick up my daughter, I'm back online at 7:38 after I feed them and after they go to sleep. So yeah, you just kind of just figure it out and prioritize or make things more efficient throughout the day, right? Yeah, I'll say having a family makes you more efficient marketer.
Nowadays there is a lot of these kind of like in fundraising consultant, like even like the big guy investment banker try to enter to this startup ecosystem. To maybe they help more, like there is series B, series C, but there's a lot of these also boutique investment consultant, blah blah blah, I don't know. So do you really help these companies What's your opinion about this? Because I saw more this kind of like investment banker set up like small boutique helping companies. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. You definitely see a lot more of that, and which stage of the fundraise you engage them, I think makes a difference, right? So, and also you need to understand what your once again what your priorities are on fundraising. Uh, let's say you're an early stage company, seed Series A, um, and you engage an advisor. That doesn't really look good in terms of optics, right? Like why do you need why do you need to engage an advisor to raise let's say a $3-5 million round and pay them fees? Because most of the time, I mean, when you're when you're an early stage funder, you should be able to manage fundraising by yourself. And there are plenty of other resources. There's plenty of help that you can go to for advice, for help as well, even though you don't know how to navigate that, right? But when you're starting to raise the tens, the hundreds of millions of dollars, you may not have access to those kind of capital, even regionally, right? It's not always that you have access to funds that can invest those kind of ticket sizes. So that's where you need to reach out globally. You need to look out for funds or even other investment managers outside of typical VC funds who can invest. So that's when you would probably want to engage an advisor to help with fundraising, to get you access to money that's outside of your network. And I think we're starting to see larger rounds in the region. So maybe these bankers who are effectively experts at raising money are starting to set up boutique shops.
I see. And I think after we raise the money, there's always another challenge. Let's say we get the term sheet. The challenge is, as first time founders, let's say, they don't know how to review the term sheet, and they start to need to like hiring a lawyer, but lawyer is too expensive for seed round. So, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, when it comes to these clauses on the term sheet, shareholders agreement, share purchase agreement, I would definitely have. I would definitely prefer to have legal review than not. And the thing is, there are plenty of lawyers, legal firms that are more startup friendly, right? And how these legal firms also work is that they will take the hit on the seed Series A, but then they expect you to have a relationship for their subsequent rounds so that they can kind of recoup their, I wouldn't say losses, but revenue, right? So more often than not, they are willing to give discounts at early stage for early stage companies, and there are definitely startup friendly pricing type of legal firms in the region as well. I can name a few, right? So I think at any cost, you would want to have legal review around your terms and clauses, because those things can really bite you in the, come back and bite you in the ass if you don't have them properly documented. And also like for an early stage type of investment, it shouldn't be that complicated, right? If an investor is asking for a lot of terms, making things complicated at such an early stage, that's also a red flag. You should ask yourself, like, hey, if this is the relationship that I want with my investor, and if this is how we're going to start, how is it going to look like 2 or 3 years down the line? Like, are they going to keep on continuing to make it difficult for me? Right. So that's also something that you want to keep in mind when you're negotiating term sheets and so forth.
But maybe, Hiro, you can say that because you are a serial entrepreneur. But for first-time founders who, let's say, previously he worked for a corporation and suddenly he started a company and they got the term sheet, he don't know or she don't know whether these terms are are common or not. That's the challenge as well, you know.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's true. That's true. So I guess I had the privilege of being on the VC side to understand the terms before I became a founder, right? But you're absolutely right. I think for a first-time founder, some of these terms can be confusing, daunting at some points. Um, one resource I can recommend is there's this book called Venture Deals, right? It really goes kind of deconstructs what each term mean in a term sheet. These are typical terms that you would see in an investment agreement document. Um, so that's one thing that a founder can go through. And as a founder, one thing I notice is that don't be afraid to ask for help. That's one advice that I would have told my earlier self. Right? More often than not, people are willing to help. Right? So even on LinkedIn, reached out, and even if out of 10 people, 9 says no, there's going to be at least one that's going to be more than willing to help you for these stages. As a founder myself as well, right? Like, I mean, this is the whole reason why I'm doing this with you, Tal, the startup studio. I want to make sure that early stage founders, first time founders, can avoid the mistakes that I made. To not go through what some of us had to go through, right? And those are difficult times, man. It's really bad times, and it sucks to go through that. So my only wish is that for early founders is, don't be afraid to ask for help, and there's more people than you would think that are willing to spend some time to give insight on this.
Yeah, I think you were saying there's this more flexible lawyer probably in Singapore, but I don't know in Jakarta. But I've actually very interesting experience back in 2013. I had the seed round investment, and me and my partner decided to have this lawyer in Silicon Valley, and it's like. But the interesting, it was 2013, and the payment of the lawyer is really we can pay per terms. I mean, okay, 20% on the seed round, 30% on the A round, 50% on B round. So they actually accept if we fail to go to the next round, they don't. So that's the Silicon Valley back in 2013. But after that, we use a Singapore lawyer. They don't accept this kind of model. It's not allowed. It's illegal in Singapore. I don't know, but it was 2015. But now probably there are more model space. But I don't see any Indonesian lawyer has this flexibility and also has experience. But I think I agree with you. The best person is to talk to the other founders. And I think thank you for being a coach at Startup Studio Indonesia. I think many of these founders that are being coached by you, they're really helpful. I think we should create one special session about term sheet, and I think you should be the speaker. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll create for that session just because there is so many people asking me about term sheet, and you should hire a lawyer. And I really don't know which lawyer that I can recommend with, and in terms of have a good payment terms. Yeah. Okay, so enough about the fundraising now. So I think I would like to talk more about how you built the B2B business. I think you are a global company. You have 3 licenses in Jakarta, Singapore, and Hong Kong. And when you start the company, how big is the team?
Yeah, so when we started, we only had 3. Sorry, 3 developers and my co-founder and I, so 5 of us. That was it.
Yeah. So how you build building a B2B is not easy, and you especially applying a license in Singapore, in Hong Kong, and in Jakarta, the bureaucracy and everything. Can you share about the whole stories and how you manage that?
Yeah. The license part was definitely one of our biggest hurdles that we had to get through earlier on because, again, when it came to fundraising, a lot of VC just simply said no because we didn't have a license. Although we are thankful for those who backed us even without the license, right? Yeah, so being a regulated entity, we knew we had to apply for a license, and we knew that the license application time was processing time was going to take a while. So within that period, we at least try to run the business as much as we can without needing the license, right? And building the product, engaging our early customers back then on building out what features they want, and really being focused on building out B2B products, right? Built a B2B payments platform that was different from the guys who serve the retail customers like Wise and so forth. Yeah, I mean the license application, we actually did it all by ourselves. I mean, we had a compliance kind of manager officer back then for Singapore. We started off in Singapore, and then in Indonesia, we engaged like a third party sort of in-house counsel type of a person that was familiar with BI license applications. But we did all the documentation ourselves. Right? We wrote our business plan, our compliance SOP, our tech infrastructure, risk management stuff, um, and all our compliance manager and our kind of third party counsel did was to recommend things on how to format it, what kind of things we should put in, and also facilitate meetings between us and the regulators. So all in all, it actually took about a year and a half for both licenses to get. All right, and that was a long time for us. Every day, I mean, like imagine waiting for something day in day out without having any clarity on when the result is going to be. But thankfully that's over. We managed to get both the MAS license out of Singapore and the BI license out of Indonesia around the same period, and that really helped us scale and put our efforts into sales and marketing.
Okay, I get it. So I think let's go to the next question. So, Hiro, many of these VC doesn't like B2B because there is all this uncertainty of enterprise sales. How you manage that to convince this VC? Because I think applying license also there's a lot of uncertainty because everything, all these OPEX that's running on the monthly basis. So how you convince about this B2B enterprise?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, definitely B2B is kind of looked at as a non VC sexy type of business, right? Unlike a consumer pay where you're growing like 10x, 40x, whatever, month on month, year on year, sexy, super sexy, right? And I think that was definitely one of the challenges that we had when we were pitching our B2B story. And how do you say it? Yeah. I guess it really depends on being able to position yourselves as a company, as a product as well, right? And really differentiating yourself to highlight the opportunities in your industry, right? So when we were pitching, we clearly had like a competitive landscape map, and a lot of them are B2C, and it's great, right? So we position ourselves as B2B, but of course the question naturally is, okay, these guys have much more money than you. What happens if they do B2B? Right? Back then, we didn't really have the answer. We just try to talk our way through. But as you build your business and as you start to understand the key differences between B2B and B2C, you'll be able to really highlight that the DNA of the company when it's come to B2B and B2C is very different. You can't, it's not as easy as, okay, hey, look, we've been doing B2C, we're going to do B2B next day, right? The company itself, right? The structure, the back office, sales, it's a completely different organization that you have to build to cater for B2B business. And these are the points that we started to highlight more, that we try to extract ourselves to add on to our story And I think that's what helped us when it came to pitching a B2B business, raising money for a B2B business when they were comparing us to, for example, a B2C and so forth, right? Yeah, as long as you have those kind of key points to to differentiate yourself, and that that you're able to build defensibility moat, right? What most people coin it, then you become attractive business model to look at. Yeah, and I guess sorry, one more thing I like to add is B2B metrics and B2C metrics are different, right? So you really need to know what metrics that a B2B company, when it comes to B2B, what, or any company that you need to keep track of, and that you're doing better compared to your peers, right?
By the way, so do you usually all these startup also? So maybe my question will be, who's doing the B2B sales? Because B2B sales is more an art than science. Is it you and the founders, or you hire somebody from Western Union, somebody like C-level of Western Union joined you or something? So what's the story of this?
In the beginning, it was me and my co-founder, right? We were the sales guys. A lot of our initial customers came from us. And then once we understand them, then you start looking at building a sales infrastructure, right? Um, and I think when it comes to B2B, building that out is critically important, because that's really the key driver of growing your business. And within the sales infra or funnel, when things are not going right, then you can really pinpoint where exactly in the funnel is where, are you not doing the right thing. So eventually, for us, when we look at hiring sales or looking for sales, sure, having existing experience in the companies like you mentioned, Western Union or others, definitely helps because they're familiar with the product. But also, we want to be able to identify sales candidates who are not necessarily from a related experience, but from a specific industry, for example, right? Like an automobile salesman. They know the automobile industry in and out, right? And learning our product is not rocket science. If you can sell a car, or if you can sell, be a successful salesman in a specific industry, then you can sell. I'm sure you can sell anything else. So for us, we worked on two different methods or ways of hiring sales. One is by relevant industry in FX and payments, and one is in other industries, but specialized in specific sectors. Right.
So who's your head of sales now? Is it yourself, or you hire somebody from corporation, big guy?
Yeah, we have a country head of sales. I guess head of sales in each country. Our current one in Singapore came from Western Union, actually. So
Oh,
he's
yeah, I was right.
and
I'm
then
just guessing actually.
and then Indonesia came from a previous competitor of ours that shut down. Yeah, but we've definitely have salesperson that came in from like oil and gas industry. Another one that was in insurance. I don't think she was a salesperson, but she was in insurance somehow. So yeah, we definitely have salespeople in our team that are from other industries.
So for this like B2B sales, along the way when the company is starting to be big, being recognized, do you feel that the role of high touch sales by your senior people is getting less because people are reaching you guys more, so you have more easier lead?
Yeah, no, we will always get asked this, right, from investors because of our sales team, because of our B2B nature. Are you building out just another brokerage house? Are you building out just another, FX house with sales guys calling and so forth?
Yeah.
Because that's how the industry has worked for B2B, and that's how the industry will continue to be. You still need that kind of high touch elements of servicing your corporate enterprise customers, because these are needy guys. I'm not saying they're bad, but these are the guys. When it comes to B2B, your customers are going to be the most important sort of factor in giving you the correct feedback on your product, and also helping you lay out the product roadmap as well, right? Because you're going to be customizing a lot of features for them. So it becomes critically important to have that touch point with your customers, that engagement point with your customers. How we built our business is that, of course, with tech and with tech enabling our sales efforts, marketing, and so forth. Um, we try to operate as a hybrid model, right? So there are high touch elements that our sales guys get engaged on when it comes to onboarding, servicing them, and so forth. But everything else is digital, right? Our customers can transact online by themselves. They can upload documents. They can go through a full KYC, know your customer onboarding process by themselves, right? But I think no matter what, when it comes to B2B enterprise, you still need that sort of high touch element. And how much of that you do then defies whether if you're building a startup enabled by tech, or whether if you're building another brokerage firm or another insurance agency, right? Yeah.
And I think, and also because the corporate world or the enterprise world are not, they don't have any like open API kind of platform. Do you see in the future when all these corporations are using the platform based, open API based, this kind of B2B sales, high touch sales is getting less and less? Do you agree with that? When every ecosystem becoming platform centric, do you see the future will be that?
Hmm. Um, I mean, I'll say it depends on the target customers or segment, or target segment as well, right? Sure, maybe when it comes to corporate enterprise, these are like the MNCs, large corporates, right? You're talking about like the Oracles, Googles, or whatever, the Indo Foods, for example. Um, I think an element of leveraging tech will help reduce the high touch side, but there's going to be a wide segment of traditional SMEs that don't have tech capabilities, right? I mean, these are what the guys like the Bukukas and the Buku Warungs are trying to do. You still need to go down on the ground, onboard them, have a maybe like a merchant acquisition team, have a sales team. I mean, a lot of our users as well are finance managers that are in the mid to late sort of 40s. And we have like fruit and vegetable shops using us, very, very traditional businesses using us as well. We don't see them building out API tech capabilities that reduces high touch points. But yeah, as I mentioned, maybe for the larger corporates, that might be the case.
Okay. So when we are talking about the product itself, how long for Wallex to get the product market fit when you guys started? How long it takes? How months or years? Can you share the experience?
Yeah, I'll say for our common sort of for our, how do you say, for our initial feature, which is to help make payments and do FX. This is a product that's existing, that people already use, right? Even in banks, you can do a cross-border payment, even though if it's manual, you still there is still a feature to make a remittance, right? And then there's the Western Unions and the Amex and so forth. So our customer behavior of needing to make an online payment has always been there, right? Nothing's changed. What we had to do was we had to build a product to convince them to switch over to us. So those were some of the initial things that we had to go through when it came to product market fit. I mean, we knew that our product would be used, but it was a more of a matter of how can we make them switch to us, right? And because we're handling customer money and so forth, there was a lot of trust issues in the beginning, right? Who are we? We're a small customer. We're a small, dinky little startup out of Indonesia and start in Singapore. Yeah, how can they trust us with their money, right? So those were some of the things to overcome I guess in that kind of product market fit um, category, right? So some of the things we did was, of course, initially it's friends and family that's using it. And then you would get sort of anchor customers to start using it. So whenever you're pitching to a new customer, saying, hey, these guys are using it, these guys are using it. And then, of course, with our investment with us from Central Capital Ventura, we'd be like, hey, BCA is invested in us. And then the license really helps, right? But even then, like we still get pushback, like, oh, how's my, how can I be confident that my money is secure with you, right? And then we would start adding in features or notifications. I think over communicating is always better than not communicating. So along the, let's say, transaction process, there's going to be various points where we would shoot out emails to our customers saying, hey, your money is here now, it's being processed by this, and then your money is here and so forth. So I think those were some of the challenges that we faced early on in getting customers on board. But once they use us, it's natural for them, right? They make payments. It's not like we're changing their behavior. But getting them to switch to us was definitely an initial challenge that we had.
So, Hiro, when do you feel that this product market fit is happening? When you can see that the customers start to using you more customer coming because they know your brand. Is it how long it takes? Is it like 6 months, a year?
Yeah, oh, that's a good one. It probably also differs depending on the product, but at least for us, one of the key kind of points metrics that we looked at was NPS, Net Promoter Score, right? And this was an advice that one of our VCs gave us. Like you should check your NPS score. You should do your NPS score. What is an NPS score? Right. This is a score between 1 to 10 on how much your product is being promoted word of mouth by your customers. Now, because we were, our customers were B2b, and we didn't really have a lot of budget on marketing. We didn't really have a sales team back then. We relied a lot on, I would say we relied, but a lot of the customers that we signed up were through word of mouth. So we started measuring this, right? And of course, 10 being, I'm super happy about your product. I'm going to refer this without even you asking us to refer it. And one is, no, I hate this product. I don't even want to refer to anybody. So by understanding that, we were able to sort of come up with the conclusion that with high NPS score, we have good product market fit because people are, one, happy with using our product, they're satisfied, and they're willing to refer it without even us having to ask them to refer it, right? So when we get things like, oh yeah, this person so and so told me about you guys, and you guys can help us with our FX and cross border, and that was really useful for us. So every time we onboard a new customer, and once they transacted with us, we would ask them, like a quick survey on a score of 1 to 10, how likely would you promote us? Of course, retention is one thing, right? Once you have retention, and once you have more and more business coming through you from the same customer, that's part of get fit. But for us, for our segment, we really try to measure, we really try to aim for a high NPS score to identify product market fit.
So can you share a little more detail about the implementation of NPS? Because NPS actually, when you measure when the one client coming from other recommendation is not doing a survey from your existing client. Do you mind sharing detail what kind of tools you are using? How you, because I think I agree with you. NPS is very important for to define the product market fit.
So you're asking what kind of tools we use to measure NPS?
Yeah, and how you implement this NPS. Yeah.
Yeah. In the beginning, it was just us calling whenever they wanted to do a transaction, and they did it. And we would just WhatsApp them, or because we know everybody, we know our clients, right? It was just WhatsApping them or calling them, and we would put it in a Google Sheets. And then, as we built up the product, one, we do mail surveys, right? And the other one is on our kind of dashboard. So similar like to what I think Zoom used to do this as well. You would see like a little thing like at the bottom, right? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to promote this? So we just put that somewhere in the customer dashboard for them to just quickly click on it. So yeah, I mean, in the beginning, when you don't have the resources, then you have to engage the customers. But we were able to do this because it was B2B, right? We only had so many customers that we could engage everybody. But once you start scaling, you definitely want more feedback on this. So having it somewhere on your customer, UI engagement UI, it makes it easy for them to just quickly pick a score and get engagement through that. Yeah, so I think MailChimp does it. Intercom probably did it as well. Yeah, so there's various tools to implement this.
Okay, maybe this is last question from me, and I think one unique thing that you share the story to me about hiring a team, and you shared to me that you have a developer in Balikpapan. You are you have three Singapore, Hong Kong, Jakarta global company, but your engineer in Balikpapan. I never heard any other startup has an engineer in Balikpapan. Maybe can you share the story? Why?
Yeah, I tell it, this is actually a big secret. We don't want to expose that there's talent. Gotta keep it low. I'm kidding. Um, so initially, when we were looking for developers, our CTO, so we were very lucky to find developers in those places, right? Our CTO was actually an angel investor of ours, and back then he had a tech development house. I think maybe 15, 20 people, medium-sized shop, doing tech work, outsourced tech work for various companies. And I guess he saw what we were doing. He liked us, which is why he invested as an angel. We were getting some traction, and we were also looking for a CTO. So when we asked him if he knew anybody, he was like, "Hey, I can actually become a CTO." So at that time, I guess he had guys in Balikpapan as well as Malang doing his tech development. So he just brought those guys in to our team. So we were very lucky to find developers in Balikpapan and Malang, because as you know, it's a very competitive landscape on getting good talent when it comes to Jakarta and even Bandung as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think Hiro, thank you so much for all these sharing session and so all the detail. So maybe you've been in Startup Studio first batch, second batch. I know that you meet a lot of. I think we've been coaching a lot of founders. Maybe you have some advice for these early stage founders to building the companies and growing the companies. Maybe you have an advice, last words from you.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a very engaging session, even through our coaching sessions and so forth. Um, I guess one thing, if I had to put it in terms of like advice, is there's going to be times where as a founder, you're not going to know what to do, right? You're stuck. Founders get stuck all the time. And even though as successful as you think, some of these bigger companies are, they get stuck as well. They have, I think each stage has different challenges, right? And I think it comes down to how one, how perseverance, how much grit and perseverance you have as a founder to overcome that, and two, how adaptable you can be to overcome that as well, to navigate that as well. Um, like events like COVID, they're just gonna knock you out in the face, right? Things are gonna be unexpected. You're gonna have to change things quickly. You're gonna have to be nimble. But most importantly, I think founders in some ways, even though shit hits the fan, even though things are going bad, at the back of my mind, they're saying, "Hey, things are going to be okay." Right? And you need to have that bit of sort of positivity to keep you moving. Otherwise, it's so difficult to do this. So that's what I would what I would tell early stage founders, that even though you're going through rough patches, even though you're going through a roller coaster ride, with grit and perseverance, and with how do you say it? With asking for help, there are more than one ways to get out of it. There are more solutions that you will find to your problems. Yeah, I'd say one of the key traits of good founders is that they always find solutions. No matter what, they keep on charging.
Okay. Thank you, Hiro, for sharing, and so real, so real. I think it's this very good session to be listened by all these founders. Thank you so much for sharing. Hopefully, best for Wallex and for you and the team. Keep growing and more global presence. Yeah. Thank you, Hiro. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Likewise. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Terima kasih sudah menyaksikan video podcast kami. Jangan lupa ikutin semua social media Startup Studio Indonesia.